What was your biggest lucky time doing this moment? Deciding to go on a solo backpacking trip when I was 18 years old. I'm a worrier and not very good at handling stressful situations, and at the time I was also super introverted. That trip really helped me realize that I'm capable of a lot more than I think. In the spring of 2017 I was contacted on OkCupid by an Australian woman in her mid-20s while she was in Argentina. She said she liked my profile and that she would be in Texas in 2 weeks and wanted to hang out. I agreed, and then 2 weeks later she stood me up. She messaged me that night and apologized and asked if we could try again. I reluctantly agreed. When we got together we hit it off super well. We talked a lot about her travels. She'd been backpacking around South America for 3 months. She told me about how she hadn't really planned the next part of her trip. She just needed to be in San Francisco in 2 weeks to fly home. She wanted to do a road trip from Texas to California, but didn't realize how expensive it would be, and also didn't know if she'd even be allowed, since she didn't have a US license. Earlier that month I had been talking to a friend in San Francisco that wanted me to come visit. I had been saving for a vacation. I own a truck and a mid/smallish sized travel trailer. Campgrounds are cheaper than hotels, and I was already thinking about making that exact road trip, which I had already done once before 4 years prior. When I told her all of that, she was interested but very skeptical. She told me she only half believed me. I was skeptical too. A few days on the road with someone can turn into a nightmare if you can't connect and have fun together. For all either of us knew, the other was totally crazy point. So our second date I brought a couple maps and a plan. This was apparently sexy and impressive. This seemed to reassure her, and we discussed our hypothetical road trip. We planned on where we would camp and sightsee, and we decided to do it in 5 days, a pretty leisurely pace. After working out the logistics we were both feeling better about the idea, but still unsure point. I stored my travel trailer on a ranch in the hill country, about a 2-hour drive from where I live, so I suggested that we drive out there, stay a night, and drive back as a trial run. If all goes well then we would leave a day later and split the travel expenses. The trial run was brilliant, and we were becoming pretty smitten with each other, so we said, "Fuck it, let's travel across the country with someone I just met." The 5-day trip turned into 8 days. We had so much fun we didn't want to say goodbye. After she flew home we kept in touch almost daily for nearly a year. We still chat on occasion to check in with each other, and I have plans on getting an Australian road trip out of her one day. Called my wife and told her I had a drinking problem. Hard mother-rucking phone call to make, I tell you what. Of course she already knew, most did, but getting it out there verbally was hard. Real hard. I'd also like to thank Topo Chico Bubbly Water for satisfying my need to drink cold bubbly drinks and need to be holding a beverage urges. Sober and hydrated. 1.5 years. Was going through some domestic violence BS and wasn't allowed to leave the home for months at a time. They tried to choke me to death, yelled at me a lot, etc. I can't remember all of it. My grandmother had died, and I'm pretty sure it was the intent to kill me and get my part of the inheritance. The inheritance money finally came in after about 6 months of this treatment, and while the other person took his half and went on vacation, I took my half and bought a Greyhound ticket and got out of there. Best decision I ever made. Sitting in a terrible apartment, listening to the upstairs neighbor play fetch with his dog in the house, after waking me up at 4:30 AM. I'd been searching for a new apartment, but all I could see was my next bad rental. And so I ended up browsing Zillow and stumbled upon a townhouse in one of my favorite neighborhoods, in my price range, with all the features I wanted. Stared at it for a week, then said "Uck it, I was going to end up buying a house in a few years, might as well just do it now." Things got kind of chaotic for a few months getting funds sorted, and inspections and packing and moving, but I moved in over a year ago and absolutely love the house. Last night, my elderly dog, Bryant, has been going downhill for months. We had been hanging on for a while, and truth be told, probably too long. Last night we came home from a quick trip to the grocery store, and she was laying on the ground, barely breathing. She started to seize, and I knew then that it was time. I held her in my arms while the emergency vet put her down. I've never cried so hard in my life. Today, I'm a goddamn Drake. I can't eat or drink. I didn't sleep last night. I've been in a perpetual state of tears since she passed away. I feel like I didn't do right by her. I know it was for the best, but I've never had to put an animal down before. And she was literally the best dog I've ever known. We had her for almost 10 years. Next month would have been 10. We got her as an adult from a shelter. They waived her fee because she was going to be put down if no one adopted her. They were low-kill, but she'd been there for 6 months at the time. I loved that dog more than I love 90% of the humans in my life. I consider it a blessing that I got to know her. But Christ, this pain is terrible, and I don't know when it will stop or if it will stop. And what's worse is the guilt. I tried to write up a RIP obituary type thing in r/dogs because I wanted some advice from other people who had gone through it. But the automat deleted it because I put something other than just her name in the title. I gave up because I can't rewrite all those memories over. I can barely think her name without bursting into tears. I don't think I'll ever own another dog. This is the end game, and I don't think I can ever go through this again. Bought a sailboat. Quit a decent paying job that I hated. Sailed from New York to the Caribbean where I hung out for a year, then sold the boat back in Florida, and then spent the next 5 months hiking the Appalachian Trail. Went back to work for a year, and now I'm currently backpacking through Southeast Asia for the next 6 months. A few years ago, I was asked by a rather open-minded friend if I could assist her in planning her dream birthday party. I should specify at this juncture that her dream birthday party was essentially an orgy. Being the kind, organized friend that I am, I told her that I'd be happy to help her out, and I so spent the better part of 2 weeks organizing and planning an orgy, which, if you've never planned an orgy, can get complicated in less than traditional ways. The big day arrived, and there I was, clipboard in hand and a fishbowl of condoms in my lap, and the party started. I was raised very conservatively, and my comfort level with sex was, at the time, less than stellar, and I was terrified, not only of what I was about to witness, but also because I didn't want to let my friend down. What if I'd planned a ratty orgy? That's a kind of shame you can't walk away from. It is also important to note that my friend was very specific about her entrance, and at the stroke of 8:30 p.m., she gloriously descended the stairs in a feathered Hollywood movie star robe and then dropped it, revealing her full back Tyrannosaurus Rex tattoo, and I had my very definitive of, well, my friend is naked on the stairs. There are 15 dudes and ladies waiting to bang her. And this might be one of the weirdest nights of my entire life, but fuck it, here I am, and I'm doing it moment. At some point, I looked around over a sea of pasty white middle-aged weirdos and realized that maybe being a well-rounded adult is deciding that you want to have an orgy for your birthday, and there's nothing really wrong with that, as long as everyone consents. It was, weirdly, one of the most wholesome and affirming nights of my entire life. 2 years ago I had a rocket year, where I spent less time worrying about consequences and people's opinions and just did it. Bought my first house. Now I have flatmates who pay off most of the mortgage, and met some really cool people. Got my first tattoo, FMA transmutation circle. Still getting compliments on it, and still love it myself. Tried stand-up comedy for the first time. I'm still doing it regularly, made some great friends, and it's been amazing for my depression and social anxiety. Edit. Also handed in my notice for a job I hated and enrolled in study again. Early this year, I had built a life with someone for over 4 years. We had a place together, lots of mixed belongings/accounts, etc. Long history together, and we were engaged, but he treated me like crap. I was always second. So, I got really depressed and confided often to a guy I met at work. He was really sweet, and we had a lot in common. He eventually told me he would back off of being friends because he really wanted to be together and didn't want to feel worse with the situation I was already in. This guy was everything I wanted the current to be, and I really admired his honesty and everything. Fuck it. I'm doing it. I'm gonna be happier. Be with this guy. It has been the happiest year of my life. It's so nice to be with someone thoughtful and respectful to you, and I love him more than I knew I could. Trust the gut feeling. Just fucking do it. A few years ago I met a guy on Plenty of Fish. Yeah, I know. Make fun of me later lol. And we were talking for about a month before he asked me out on a little lunch date. Went on the date, had a great time, and afterwards he asked me if I wanted to go back to his place. Mind you, I was raised very conservatively and also to be essentially scared as hell of guys. My mom always said that guys just want to take girls to their place so they can rape them. Against all of my better judgment, I agreed and we walked back to his place. We had a good time, watched a little bit of TV, and after a couple of hours he walked me back to the diner. I gave me a kiss on the cheek, and we parted ways. We were just married on August 31st of this year. Wasn't sure if a girl he's been chasing for months was giving me signals. She needed to do something in my city and wanted to stay the night. I said sure, but didn't have more than one bed, so to avoid being creepy I offered to sleep on the couch. She hesitated. I offered to both stay in the bed, and she nodded. Cue 2 hours of lying nervously on my side trying not to come off as a predator while trying to make small talk. Eventually I realized we had been cuddling for like an hour and had progressively been getting friendlier and touchier, and at this point I'm just trying to weigh the possibilities she's just unreasonably friendly versus actually into me, and doing this while trying to be a conversation partner is slowly melting my dumb brain. I figure I've been single long enough. I lifted her chin and kissed her, giving her plenty of time to recoil and pull away or stop me. She didn't. We've only been together for a bit over 6 months, but she makes me happy. My goal is to make her happy.